Laughter and smiles along the Helmand River. Raised in war, this past year, a first ever glimpse of peace for these young boys. We're in Sangin, long a Taliban stronghold. Here, so many lives were lost. British, American, and most of all Afghan. The only fighting now, inside the wrestling ring. In this deeply conservative part of the country where women are kept from public view. Many supported the insurgency. Others are simply relieved the violence has finally come to an end.
Life is very good now. People are very happy. There's freedom and no fighting.
All of you here, have most of you lost someone in the war?
Not just one, but 2 or 3. There is not a single house in the district that hasn't suffered.
Reminders of the war are everywhere. The road from Sangin to Helmand's capital Lashkar, scarred by Taliban bombs. But inside Afghan cities, there's a new battle against hunger. The Taliban takeover, accompanied by an economic crisis. More children than ever are going hungry after foreign grants which propped up the last government were slashed. Food prices have been rocketing up.
Look at my hands. I can't even earn $2. There's no work at all.
Even when I am saying my prayers, all I can think about is how to pay back the loans I am taking out.
Are people happier now that there's peace but no money? Or they preferred it before when there was war and more money?
I am happy. I live outside the city and couldn't travel at night. Now I can, but I'm earning nothing.
There are people who genuinely support the Taliban, particularly in places like Helmand. But this is also one of the most tightly controlled provinces. We've been told that anyone publicly criticizing the Taliban runs the risk of arrest or even worse. Naveed Azimi, an English teacher, was detained by the Taliban after writing a Facebook post about the lack of salaries. His body was later dumped by the river, the Taliban claiming he'd been trying to escape. We've been told of others also arrested because of their social media activity. Too afraid to meet us, one man agreed to talk on the phone. Will the Taliban tolerate any kind of criticism online at all?
You can't say anything. Some people have been arrested for writing a single comment. They have different types of torture, hitting people with cables or pipes, holding their heads underwater.
From Helmand, we leave for Kandahar. The drive unimaginable for us whilst the war was still going on. In the fields, grapes are being harvested. But it's another crop this part of the country is most famous for. Opium grown here produces the vast majority of the world's heroin. It's been a valuable source of income for poor farmers as well as the Taliban. Now they've banned it. Dried up poppies, all that remain. We arrive in Kandahar, Afghanistan's second largest city and the spiritual home of the Taliban. It was at this shrine more than 25 years ago that the founder of the Taliban, Mullah Omar, was first declared leader of the faithful, taking out a cloak said to belong to the Prophet Muhammad and holding it in front of a crowd. Now, the Taliban's government, its cabinet, is based in Kabul, but the new reclusive supreme leader is in Kandahar, and it's here that ultimate power still resides. The supreme leader remains out of sight, but he's thought to be behind a hardening stance within the Taliban. So far, corporal punishment hasn't been widely implemented, but this was a man flogged for sex outside marriage in a neighbouring province earlier this year. Last month, 3 people were lashed in Kandahar. Many people inside and outside Afghanistan would be deeply uncomfortable, deeply concerned by rules and punishments like this.
It's our nation, our people, our religion, culture and traditions. If the rest of the world criticizes us, it is not right.
Can you just clarify for me, is it allowed to criticise the Taliban? Because we've seen a number of people in Kandahar and other parts of the country arrested for doing that.
Yes, they can, if it's constructive criticism, if the aim is to destroy the system, or it goes against Islamic beliefs. It's the right of every country to control it.
It's Afghan women who've been impacted the most by the new Taliban government's laws. Here in the south of the country, most already wore the burqa in public. Female teachers and healthcare workers are amongst those still working. Others have been told to stay at home. Nagina was a presenter at a radio station, but stopped when fighting intensified. In Kabul, the Taliban do allow female journalists on air, but here in Kandahar, they don't.
Kandahar is a province where people don't often let women work. On the street, I was hit. My scarf was pulled. Cigarette packets and bottles were thrown at me. People tried to give me their phone numbers. Despite all this, I managed to reach this position.
How does it feel now, sitting at home?
Sometimes I wish I had never gotten an education.
Kandahar might be where the Taliban first emerged, but it's also where they faced some of the fiercest resistance. The Taliban have committed countless atrocities, but at times they, or those accused of links to them, have also been the victims of atrocities. The incidents just never got highlighted in quite the same way. This is another shrine here in Kandahar, commemorating one of the Taliban's most notorious opponents. General Razik was given a hero's funeral after being assassinated by the Taliban 4 years ago. Closely supported by international forces, he held back the Taliban advance around Kandahar, but was also accused of widespread human rights abuses. In a town south of Kandahar bordering Pakistan, General Razik's forces ran their own secret prison. Faizullah spent 3 years here. He says he's never even been part of the Taliban. This room here.
They hung me from the ceiling and tied my arms to a pipe. They beat my legs with bayonets. After 3 days, they cut me down and I fell on my head. My jaw was totally broken.
Did you think you were going to get out of there alive?
They wanted to kill me, and I thought they would.
What happened here helps explain why some Afghans never saw much difference between the previous government and the Taliban. It's what the Taliban do now that matters most. There's been widespread dismay at their decision to keep the majority of girls' secondary schools closed. Heading back to Kandahar, we take a detour. We're following a mobile school. This Afghan charity helps promote education in remote villages. Here, no girls' secondary school even exists.
They need building, they need stationery, they need books, curriculum books. Education is our Islamic rights, our basic rights, it's our human rights, and the people want that.
Older girls and women remain behind closed doors. Taliban officials cite these ultra-conservative values as the reason for keeping schools closed. But even here, fathers say they want their daughters to get an education.
In the future, they can become doctors and serve the country. I want them to study at university.
Some people think that villagers living in areas like this, they just don't want their daughters to go to school past grade 6. Is that true?
There should be a separate building for girls, and they should have a female teacher. They should wear the burqa on their way. That is an Islamic framework.
Many ask whether the Taliban have changed since the last time they were in power. What matters more is how much Afghan society has changed, even in the Taliban's heartlands.